Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz saxophonist Anders Svanoe. We caught up with him back on May 8th, 2020 during the early throes of the COVID-19 lockdown to talk about quite a bit, like his 2019 CD, To Be Young, and how he got his start in music taking piano lessons, singing in the church choirs, and playing saxophone and even piano in public school bands. He would go on to learn from multi-instrumentalist and composer Roscoe Mitchell, and also he would gig with him. He's got great stories. Enjoy.
How you doing?
Well, just trying to make it through, man. How you doing?
I'm all right. Just got off the phone with my bass player and talking about some website stuff and state of things. So things are pretty good. How are you guys doing down in Kansas City?
Well, I'm actually, we can get out and about here, and I'm looking at the banners going downtown that say Super Bowl champions, and that seems like 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Congratulations. I forgot about that. Right.
Well, yeah, and I think everybody here did too.
See, I'm a Vikings fan, so I grew up with Super Bowl, was that 3 with Len Dawson and those guys.
Oh
they beat the Vikings, Joe Cap. I don't know if you follow football, but
totally, yep.
I was born in '69, so I don't remember because I really wasn't there. But I definitely have seen the videos and things. But anyway, thanks for calling, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So where exactly are you located?
So I'm in Madison, Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
So capital city of Wisconsin. We're about an hour west of Milwaukee, maybe 2 hours from Chicago.
Okay.
So we're pretty close to most things.
How are you holding up?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
We're staying at home, trying to figure out what to do. I'm practicing a lot, spending more time with the kids, taking care of my folks. They're older, so just making sure they have food and such. And working on a few research projects, doing a lot of music stuff, from home. So doing some teaching. So it's working out okay at the moment.
Well, you had an album that came out, 2019's To Be Young, and it has to be kind of bittersweet to not be able to back that up anymore live. But people do have the latitude now to listen to music more.
Right. Yeah, I did that record for a retired UW dermatology doctor and dermatologist, and it's kind of a project that he had in mind 2 years ago that we kind of put together. So, yeah, a lot of that stuff is shut down. I mean, the gigs are, they're all gone for the time being. I mean, obviously there are people that are doing, virtual online things, but for the most part, everything's dried up. I've canceled everything, at least up until the fall, so I'm just taking a couple months at a time and just sort of seeing how things are going, and we'll see. Hopefully things will turn around, but I'm trying to be optimistic about it, but I'm also preparing for the worst, I guess.
Yeah, I think everybody is to a good degree.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised. How did jazz become kind of your life?
So, I'm from Madison. I grew up here. My family was musical. My father sings, and my mother plays a recorder. My dad was a public school teacher, and my mom taught recorder lessons out of the house, and spent a lot of time going to church as a kid, and being a part of all those music programs, and then also having a really strong public school band program that kind of helped me out. I had some really good teachers. I was a piano player back then, actually. And so that's kind of how I got started, went to college, did all that. And I went to Luther College in Decorah, Iowa for 4 years in the 80s. And then came back to Madison and did some graduate work and slowly got to meet more players and spent some time with Frank Morgan, who was the great bebop alto saxophone player who lived in Milwaukee at the time in the early 90s, and kind of spent some time with him kind of a mentor-student type situation, and played more and just did more things around here. Did gigs in Chicago, gigs in some gigs in Milwaukee, and got to meet Roscoe Mitchell, who lives here in town. Madison has three great jazz musicians. Roscoe Mitchell, started the Art Ensemble of Chicago, multi-wind player, percussion as well. Richard Davis, was the bass player for Thad. And Ben Sidran, pianist, and, he's also written a number of books. So those three guys live in town. So I started getting together with Roscoe about 20 years ago. And so I've been doing things with him, and so that's kind of how I got started. And that's about it, I guess.
Right
one thing leads to another,
Yeah, without a doubt. So tell me a little bit about the first live jazz show you saw that really inspired you.
First live jazz show. Michael Brecker at Lawrence University in 1988, maybe? That blew me away. Because I had never heard a tenor saxophone played that way. So the speed and the intonation and just the complexity of everything just really blew me away. So I would definitely say Brecker with a second place right behind it, Art Ensemble of Chicago, around that same time. For sure.
So yeah,
and I got to meet Brecker after the show too. So I think that definitely kind of iced it for me, because he was. I mean, I wasn't personal friends with him, but he seemed like a very quiet guy, very modest, very humble, which I think a lot. I've met a lot of these guys, over the years, and I think that's definitely the thread that goes through a lot of these greats, is they were very real people and very modest, and Brecker was just, but yeah, it was fantastic.
Cool. So what do you like best about being a musician?
I guess there's a certain freedom to kind of express yourself, and I think if you're a creative person, you create your own environments, and I think as a musician you can really do that. So I've been basically essentially self-employed my whole life. I mean, I've had little jobs here and there, but for the most part I've got this freedom to create my own life. So it's a larger philosophical thing, that's one. And then of course I enjoy making music and playing music. Ever since I was a kid, I always loved being in, not necessarily school band, but in bands, like with your friends. So I had my own little middle school band when I was a kid. So I've always enjoyed that part. I enjoy performing in front of people. So pretty much that for the most part.
So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and meet a musician or see them live, who would that be?
Any musician?
Any musician.
I don't know, I'd probably break your time machine, because I'd want to see so many people.
Let's break it.
But if I had to create a single musician, I don't know, Charlie Parker, I guess. He died in the mid-50s, I think, 54, 55, something like that. So, he had about a 10-year recording. So, I don't know, maybe around 1950, go back and see Charlie Parker and have a chat with him. I really feel that he's the guy, one of the guys, and ask him some questions about the saxophone. I've heard a lot of these stories through Frank Morgan, because Frank and Charlie Parker were friends. And so probably see if I could get some unanswered questions answered by Bird, and I don't know, just sit back and listen to him play. I'd love to hear these guys play. You hear all these stories about how Bird had this big, huge sound. I think Charles McPherson told me that once. He'd just fill up a room, corner to corner. And so I just think that visceral experience of being live with him in the room playing with Max Roach and, whomever, would be just fantastic. So, yeah, I'd go for Charlie Parker.
Good choice, man. And like I said, I'm downtown, so this was his stomping ground. It's kind of funny you said that, but
yeah, right. There you go. Right.
Exactly. It's awesome.
There's go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
There's a museum there, right? I want to say one of his saxophones is on display. Is it the Grafton, the plastic white one? I can't remember.
Yeah. It's just it's the plastic one.
Okay. Yeah, that's the Jazz at Massey Hall record. Warren, that was a British saxophone. Grafton was the name of the brand, because they weren't putting brass into saxophones during the Second World War. So in England, they started making these plastic saxophones. So I've played a few of them. They're interesting. You don't want to drop them because they'll break. But yeah, that's cool that you guys have that horn on display. That's awesome. I'd love to see that someday.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, it's a cool museum. It's a great place. A lot of history. Of course, you got the Blue Room there and all of that. So there's a lot of good stuff that goes into it. But
sure.
Of course, you got the barbecue and all that stuff that's going on too. So it's good for sure.
Nice.
So we're going to get back to live jazz. We're going to get back into the crowd. So I want to know from you, what do you hope both the musician and the audience gets from this time away? What revelations, realizations, when we do return, do you hope we get?
Yeah, we had it pretty good. I hope people will realize once something's gone, like live music, that it is a big hole when it's gone, and that it will be important to fill that up. Musicians don't make a lot of money for the most part. We're all mostly poor, at least people that work with me. But, we're not rich, I guess is what I'm saying. So hopefully people will try even extra hard to go out and see live music and support, of course, international, regional, but more importantly, support local musicians, because that's where it really hits home. So I'm hoping that realization will be there, and then probably for on the musician side of things, I'm getting older now, so I don't take anything for granted. I don't take any gig for granted. I play every gig like it's my last gig. So just again, kind of a musician thing is to complain about gigs or complain about not everybody does that, but there's definitely a grumbling, musicians complaining about gigs, this or that. Well, you had it pretty good because now you got none. So to enjoy that moment on stage, because there's a certain energy and feeling that you get that now all of us don't have anymore. You can only do so much with a virtual concert, that's a great idea and everything. Of course, it keeps people busy and keeps the mind active, but there's a certain vibe that you get, obviously, when you play on stage and the people in the front row dig your solo, you can't really feel that on the internet. So, just don't take anything for granted, because those gigs were and are still precious, and they will come back, and we'll get back to normal. It's just going to take. We're sort of in this middle period of figuring out what to do, and I guess just the main thing is try to stay sharp, practice, listen, and it will come back.
My final question to you is that everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? Well, I'm a father. I have 2 teenage sons, so that's number one. So I hope I'm doing a good job at that, because this is an important thing for me, family. I think I'm a creative musician. I think I'm somebody that can think and get myself out of situations and think critically and think creatively. So hopefully that comes across in my music. And I like to be a team player, so hopefully I try to get along with as many people as possible, and I think it's important as human beings that we all try to get along. I don't really, when I'm dealing with other musicians, I don't necessarily care about how good somebody is, but how they are as human beings, and if they can get along with the group dynamic. To me, that's more important. I guess just that comes with age. You can be a little more selective that way with people. So, I would say that's basically kind of who I am at the moment. Father, creative musician, and good team player.
Right on, man. Hey, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe. Good to hear from you, okay?
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Wisconsin, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Anders for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.